Excellent. Well, we're very excited to have you join us today, and I'm honored to be up here with, as Dave said, our 69th Man and Woman of the Year. If we haven't had a chance to meet, as Dave said, I'm Chad Gestson. I'm now a 25-year Arizonan, which I think entitles me to maybe a couple of opinions about our past, present, and future. And I've spent my 25 years in, 22 years in K-12, and now work and run an institute through NAU. So 25 years in the P20 educational system. But I'm joined here by two Arizona icons, Sharon Harper and Neil Giuliano. And we're here to talk about not just them and represent them and talk about who they are, but this report, the Pierce report, which came out, if you've been around, since before I arrived in Arizona. In 1987, when Neil Pierce and a handful of others wrote a report about the current state and the future state of the greater Phoenix Valley. And as Dave alluded to, as GPL reached its 50th anniversary, they then republished what's called the Pierce Report Revisited, Greater Phoenix Grows Up. So Neil, I'm going to turn it to you. Let's talk about how Phoenix grew up. Talk about the report. What have you seen? What are the highlights? Please turn it over to you.
Sure. Thank you, Chad. Great to be here. Always great to be with Sharon. So how many of you remember the Neil Pierce reports from the late 80s, early 90s? Perfect. So this was a sort of a city-state journalist, went around the country to major metro areas, pretty below the radar, and interviewed and talked to everybody, business leaders, government leaders, and all these different sectors. And then they write a big report about it. And the big report that they first wrote about our region was in 1987. Interestingly enough, it included interviews of quite a few of the, at that time, it was still the Phoenix 40. None of them identified themselves as being in the Phoenix 40. By the way, no, they would never do that. No, they would never do that. But they were involved, and so we thought, okay, well, let's take a look back at the issues that were talked about then, see how we've made progress or not, and then see how that inspires what now Greater Phoenix leadership can become into the future, right? The name change took place when Mark DeMichael and Jerry Colangelo Jerry was the chair after Mark. Conversation started while Mark DeMichael was chair in 1991, 92, and then when Jerry was chair, they changed the name to Greater Phoenix Leadership, and it moved far beyond 40. Today, we're about 130 CEOs from all different sectors and so forth. So we looked back, and the report is really kind of fascinating, and we'll make sure that Dave gets the information out. But if you go to our website, gplinc.org, there's a link to both the original Pierce report. Interestingly, Neil Pierce has passed away, but his daughter started a foundation. They have young journalists and student journalists that are doing the same kind of work that Neil was doing. Those are the people that we commissioned to come to Phoenix and basically do an update of that report. And they looked at some of the, what I call the shuns, education, transportation, and some others, education, and how did they do, right? And then they also looked at governance, and they looked at this, what Neil Pierce called at the time, this giant scar across your desert. And of course, he was referring to the dry river bottom of Rio Salado, because that was at the same time that all of us who were voters in 1987 were asked to go to the polls in Maricopa County to vote up or down on a property tax increase that would have created Rio Salado, it was only about 40 miles then from Mesa through Tempe and into Phoenix. Well, that failed. Tempe kept doing it, of course. So when we looked back, a couple of big observations, and then I'll let Sharon talk about it as well. There were really three areas that we've done pretty well. Does anybody want to guess what those are? Well, one of the shuns is not in there. Let me start with what is not in there, and that's education. We have not progressed. If you look at some of the data from 1987 and you look at some of the data from this last year and in recent years, not so well. But transportation, very, very good. the movement forward for the regional transportation plans of both 2000 and then just recently in 2024, both have created a transportation environment that allows for our economy to go, for prosperity to take place within the region. Within 3 miles of our major transportation corridor all over the valley, you will find 70% of the economic growth in this region within 3 miles of a major transportation corridor, which is pretty incredible. So going all the way back, though, if you go back to the early 80s, Phoenix was actually saying, no, we don't want to build transport. Remember that? We didn't want to build transport. We don't want all that stuff. We would have been like Albuquerque if that had progressed. We'd have been like Albuquerque. Great place. Not a whole lot of new things happening there, right? So some of them have gone really well. Rio was identified also, while on a limited basis in Tempe, it was identified in the updated report as a proof of concept, right? So, okay, folks, now you have a proof of concept. What can happen in the other 50 miles going west in the dry river bottom? And there's people both out of Michael Crow's office and with MAG and with Greater Phoenix leadership who are looking at how to seed that kind of excitement and that energy. Mayor Gallego has been great in Phoenix. We've now done tours over in Avondale and Goodyear and Buckeye, and we've been over to Mesa, Gila River Indian Community, Salt River Pima, Maricopa Indian Community. Everybody's excited now about what may be able to happen in the dry river bottom going west from Tempe. One thing you should know, there will not be another lake anywhere. And not because people wouldn't want another lake. The lake is where it is because of geography. It's a 100-year floodplain and then a 500-year floodplain. You can't build any more lakes going further and further west. The geography doesn't support that. But Rio Salado was good. Transportation was good. Overall governance came out about average. Education, not so good. So there's things that we still need to work on that the business community and all the folks from Valley leadership will be able to help us on moving forward. So Sharon, you want to talk about that a little bit?
Well, it's great to be here with the two of you. I think most people know, but Neil was the mayor of Tempe that then had the vision to start Rio Salado there. So that is the proof that you're talking about. And Chad, you being superintendent and such a leader in education and such a leader in Prop 123. So it's just been great. I wanted to just talk about Neil Pierce because I think he did us a big favor. But I remember the time when this was all going on and that publication came out and some of the business people heard about it before it came out. We were really upset with it. He couldn't be saying this about us, all of these very negative things. But what happened after that is really what has taken our region to a greater level. And many people in this room were a part of it because it brought leadership together. And very intentionally, decisions were made to prove him wrong or to learn from what he did and make a change. So at that time, the leadership of GPL stepped right up, and many of those very same leaders heard the story about how all these 23, 24 municipalities were really competing with one another, fighting with one another, and we weren't getting ahead because we were competing within, and that was the formation of the Greater Phoenix Economic Council. And pretty much the very same leaders from GPL started that. Mark DeMichael, who you mentioned, was chairman, and every municipality stepped in, and it was honestly the collaboration between those leaders talking about this and saying, what can we do? And in addition to the infrastructure kinds of things that you've talked about, Neil, we came to learn that we couldn't rely on one industry, that was for sure. That industry was real estate and primarily home building, because that went up and down with everything. So this idea of diversification of the economy. And so thinking about that, researching that, looking at best practices, brought us to this place we are today, where we are experts in chip manufacturing. Way before TSMC, we had that platform, and now are leveraging that as well. The healthcare and bioscience. I love when Mayor Gallego says that the cure to so many diseases are going to come through the center part of Phoenix, because we have this expertise. We've intentionally attracted bioscience research, and really Greater Phoenix is on the map because of it. But I think Neil Pierce really gave us that shot in the arm, and it was such a pleasure to have the foundation come back. He wasn't here, but his daughter and that group, to see what Phoenix has done. And we're getting started with Rio Salado, even though we started with it a long time ago. We're really going to see things happen, and I think we'll talk about that in a little more detail as well.
For sure, and a lot of the healthcare progress, thank you for all the work that you've done to bring development and investment into downtown. So Neil, you mentioned maybe some of the sore spots of the report, and so maybe want to dig in. You mentioned education, maybe talk about some of the sore spots, and then we'll start to think about the future and your thoughts on where Phoenix needs to go in the next 10, 20, 30 years. Please.
Well, one of the big conversations right now, I get asked often, what do the business leaders in your organization really care about? And across sector, with varying degrees of approach, it has to do with workforce. It has to do with we're growing, we're doing so well. I don't know where I'm going to find all the employees that I'm going to need to meet the expectations of a growing state and a growing region. Remembering, of course, our region, Greater Phoenix region here, is responsible for 78% of the GDP of the state of Arizona. So we love our friends to the north and we love our friends to the south, but from a business activity standpoint, this is where most of it is happening. And so we have to get it right and we have to plan right. I want to share with you some statistics as we start to have this deeper conversation, because workforce and education often get talked about. We're going to talk about education over here, then you have another meeting to talk about workforce. We can't do that anymore. They're the same. They're interrelated. So 15% of current roles today, jobs, didn't exist 10 years ago. 15% didn't exist. 20% didn't exist 20 years ago. So there's an immense, what's been identified as a skill churn taking place overall. This is what it's like overall in the United States. 37% of core skills for the average job have changed since 2016. That's just in the last 9 years, 37% of the skills needed have changed. Here's the kicker, though. This is from the World Economic Forum, by the way. An additional 23% of job roles are going to change again by 2030. Even if they're off by 5 years or 10 years, we're talking an immense amount of change in the job market and in the skills that are going to be necessary for the overall workforce. So the takeaway on that, and then I'll let Sharon talk about this. She's directly in the workforce. Jobs are evolving very fast. Skill needs are evolving even faster. And if our market needs to stay on top of that, we have to become more adaptable, quicker, and we have to align that with what Chad and others are working on, which is preparing the future workforce. And if we don't do that, I have some other stuff that surprised me when I learned it. I think other folks will be surprised about it as well. So, Sharon, what's workforce like for you?
Well, I think if you take a look at the companies that are looking to locate to Arizona or somewhere else in the U.S., both internationally and locally, it's not the CEO that's coming to do the site selection anymore. It's the HR department. It's exactly what you're talking about, Neil. Where is that talent pipeline coming from? So it's really put our municipalities and how they're doing that on the map. Our community colleges, our workforce training programs, our universities have to be at the table for all of these discussions. But the business opportunities are moving faster than our workforce talent opportunities are. We can't seem to do enough. And we're in such a golden moment. Someone said, you're proud when you say you were born in the United States. I think we should all say we're proud we live in Arizona. In spite of everything, this is the place to be. So what do we do to stay ahead of this? That's really what we're talking about here. The workforce, the talent. I mean, ASU went from a few thousand engineers to 33,000 engineers in that school very quickly. stepping up. The city of Peoria just announced 2 amazing partnerships with WestMec, municipality and education, to get that workforce in place for the businesses they're trying to attract there. It's pretty amazing, but it's still not enough. The other thing I wanted to talk about, Chad, is it's not just companies in the U.S. that are coming here now, but the international flavor of our community is amazing. I'd say like 18 years ago, 2% of companies moving into Arizona were international. Last year, 29% of locates, international companies. And I'm not just talking Taiwan, all over the world. So in addition to the workforce, it's a kind of a cultural revolution as well, to invite and make people feel welcome and a part of this community. It's an exciting challenge and a really cool opportunity.
It's a really big challenge. And let me share a little bit more about what's driving this shift that is underway. We all have heard of AI, right? And we think of it as artificial intelligence. I want to try tonight to change your thinking on that, because it is AI, but it's not artificial intelligence. It's assisted intelligence, or amplified intelligence, or applied intelligence, or my fave that I learned from a previous Man of the Year, Michael Crow, it's augmented intelligence. Stop using artificial intelligence. In fact, there's nothing artificial about it. It's very, very real. And there's 4 big things that they're saying are driving this shift. One is this AI and automation. New roles are being created. The prompt designer. How many of you use AI now? Yeah, so you know it's not just like asking a question. You have to prompt your AI. I don't know, has anyone else here named their AI yet? Oh, come on, I can't be the only one. Thank you. So I talk to Cameron about every other day. And the prompts that I have with Cameron now responds to me, "Oh, Neil, that's silly. Here's what you really want to know." Great, right? If we are not doing that, if we are not preparing the next generation of workers to be learning and assimilated into the use of augmented intelligence, they will be left behind. So it's all of these things coming together: the digital transformation, cross-disciplinary work, and quite honestly, it's demographic. All of us who are boomers and Gen Z, the expectations for workforce placement are miles and miles apart. And so that's another aspect of workforce that we need to recognize as we're retooling education and getting people ready for all these great jobs that are going to be created. We have to prepare people in that way for them. I'd love to hear what you think about that, since you're redesigning high school education.
Yeah, well, what's interesting is, when you think about society, virtually everything has changed. The way we shop, the way we travel, the way we consume, except for education. Like if we time warped back to 1987 into a middle school or a high school classroom, it will look exactly the same. The only difference is we took paper textbooks, we digitized them, and we put them in a laptop today. It's the same across our system. And so the world continues to pass education by, and yet education stays largely the same. So I think, to Neil's point, I'll just give you one really clear example, that as we've built a statewide coalition to set a vision for Arizona's educational system, we actually reviewed high school transcripts from the 1930s, the 1960s, the 1980s, and 2024. So we looked at transcripts from when Model Ts and horse and buggies were the primary mode of transportation compared to today. And you want to know the only difference? Structurally, the elective. The only thing we've changed over the last 100 years is we used to have home ec and sewing, and now we have CTE, and we think it's exciting. But the reality is, to Neil's point, if we do not start to prepare and produce a graduate that's actually ready for the future, that actually embodies the skills, the critical thinking skills, the problem solving, the teamwork, the digital skills, that Arizona's workforce will certainly continue to be challenged. And I think the last thing that I'll say that I remind everyone, we think we have a workforce shortage and a pipeline shortage. Birth to 18, we have 1.5 million children. OEO just came out today saying that we're going to increase jobs by 450,000 over the next 10 years. We have 1.5 million future workers and future leaders sitting in seats today and prepared for seats. If we did education right, the workforce crisis that we feel all across would be very different. Neil.
But no, Chad, because you're the expert in this, what will it take for Arizona's education system to realize that AI adaptiveness and understanding and utilization needs to be a part of curriculum? Yep. It's not an extra. It's it.
Yeah, it's the elective, right?
We
tell people
anymore.
we're not going to elective our way into the future. I think here's the rest. So Neil's right, and we don't have time to share the whole story here. But for the last 2 years, many of you know, some of you have been involved. For the last 2 years, we've been growing a massive statewide coalition that started with one phone call. It's now over 200 organizations, all 15 counties, meaning indigenous, rural, suburban, urban, early childhood, K-12, higher ed, GPL, business and industry, nonprofit, thinking about the future of education. And what we've realized, and this report even says it, Arizona did not have an actual plan in 1987, and Arizona doesn't have an actual plan in 2025. And part of the reason is we don't have a vision. You can't have a plan without a vision.
But to your point, though, for education.
For education.
For all of the other ones that were identified
There's
as
a-
successful.
there's a
from
vision and a
1987,
plan.
They had very specific
Yep.
plans, very specific community engagement, and that's why they've been successful.
For sure. And so this coalition, and mind you, in this massive coalition sits Republicans, independents, and Democrats, sits charter schools next to private schools, next to district schools, next to micro schools, because we have three things in common: our children, our economy, and our future. And this group has come and said, what's a vision for Arizona's educational system and our graduates? And you'll start to see really soon that if we recenter education on a vision for the most incredible graduates that are actually ready to radically rethink, even challenge graduation requirements and standards, and that all of that must be challenged. But it starts with a vision that Arizona produces the best graduates in the country, and you'll start to hear more and more. So Sharon and Neil, for our last few minutes until I get the hook, because we're taking a picture soon, let's talk about the future. What as you think about the future of Arizona, the next 10, 20, 30 years, what excites you? Where should we spend our time and our energy? Think about the future. Which one wants to go first? Sharon.
Well, I think the sky is the limit for Arizona if we do this right. And so we've learned a lot since 1987 in the Neil Pierce report, and I think the leadership has coalesced around these really important things. Chad, I think your leadership and others in the audience who are here in the education field can really make this happen, but it's going to take everyone standing behind and pushing it forward. For some reason, that has been a problem. But I think to leverage on the industries that we have to create this global community here in Arizona to keep us sustainable with water, air quality, or transportation, we can't lose sight of why we all love it here ourselves, this quality of life. So my vision and my hope is we preserve the quality of life while creating these jobs, this growth, excellence in all that we do. We want people to move here for the right reasons, not leaving a place and bringing problems with them. We have a big shot here in Arizona, better than any place in the country to do this well.
Thank you. It's possible because of your leadership over the years. Neil, the future.
Yeah, the future. So using that word, actually, one of the things that we identified in the updated report that came out in May that you can all access on the website was where were we, where are we, and then these are the questions, right? There's a good 8 to 10 questions for each of those areas. Who will be able to convene these people? Where does the governance authority really lie? Are we future ready in this sector? You know, we all voted just last year on the 2024 transportation plan. There are people already working on the 2044 transportation plan, right? No one is working on even the 2026 education plan, right? So we have to get this mentality of becoming future ready for all of these critical things, not just the infrastructure and not just what's going to be along the river bottom or how we're going to govern ourselves. There's been some really good changes over the years on that, but we really need to focus on the ones that have not gone so well, and that's going to be our job. It's going to be Sharon's job and the other GPL members who are here, which, by the way, I'm very proud. I looked over that list of all of the previous recipients, and there were 22 previous recipients of the Valley Leadership Awards in the past, 16 men and 6 women who were affiliated with GPL. So very proud of that. We're going to be helping, but it is going to take everybody. It's really going to take everybody, and we'll be calling you at some point to become involved.
Excellent. Well, as we wrap up over our last minute, just a couple of final comments. I think to what Neil and Sharon have alluded to, it will take a broader ecosystem to tackle these bigger challenges. I think Arizona's done a great job of creating marketplace and marketplace conditions, and we have to bring together multiple sectors to challenge and address some of these issues, especially starting from children at age 0 all the way up through workforce. So we're incredibly excited to once again re-congratulate Sharon and Neil for just a few years ago. We have our new honoree who walked in the room a little bit late. Congratulations. We'll have a chance to recognize you in a moment. Let's give Neil and Sharon a round of applause. And it is now, once again, thank you to Christy Burton and the Burton Family Foundation for sponsoring and for your advocacy and education. I see Vince Roig. I have my Helios pen. So thank you for all the work that you do. My job now is to direct folks. If you are a former honoree, we are heading outside before it gets dark and current. You'll be centerpiece. Current and former honorees outside to take our picture. Thank you so much for your time today.